Hello everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this side event on promoting the transformation of food system by putting agroecology at scale. We are very happy to have you here with us. The side event will be 1 hour long, and we will have first an introductory few words from Mr. Christophe Larose, who is head of sector for sustainable agriculture and research at the European Commission Service for International Partnerships, and is a member of the unit dealing with sustainable food systems. And then we will pass on to Mr. David Amoudavi. He is the head of BioVision Trust, based in Africa, an organization that is working to promote the organic agriculture and agroecological approaches across the continent. That would be a presentation that is focusing on a more general basis and present very briefly some examples from different African countries. And then we'll take the time in the second presentation to focus a little bit more on a case study in Madagascar. And for this, we are welcoming three distinguished researchers from CIRAD organization. And they are working on two different projects promoting agroecological approaches. We will have the pleasure to listen first to Jérôme Quest, a researcher in CIRAD working for the MAQUIS program, then to Sarah Audouin, also on the MAQUIS program, and finally to Bertrand Muller, who is working a coordinator for the dynamic action. After this presentation, we will have a time left for question and answer, and I invite you to provide your question either through the chat or through the Slido application that will be transferred to me and then shared for the answers and the discussion to the different speakers. Thank you very much. Welcome again to you and to the distinguished speakers. And I pass now the floor to Christophe Larose for the introductory remarks. Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you very much, Etienne, and thank you for your work and facilitation for this event. I would like to start by saying that there is clearly a growing recognition that agriculture and food systems are contributing to the problems the world is going through, though with the different scales of impacts in various regions, but also that agriculture and food systems have a key role to play to bring lasting solutions. We can also say that there is a growing understanding that all those problems or challenges of food insecurity, climate change, biodiversity loss, depletion of natural resources such as soil and water are fully and highly interconnected. So if we take these two elements into account, this calls for systemic responses, but adapted to local context, building on but going beyond a set of good agricultural practices, and referring to clear elements and principles to frame policies, outcomes, and actions. In fact, this is what agroecology brings. As a signatory of the AgroEcology Coalition that emerged at the UN Food Systems Summit in September 2021, the European Commission is strengthening its position on agroecology in its external cooperation action in different ways, from the support to the coalition itself, to joint actions that we are co-designing with EU member states and international organizations such as IFAD, through initiatives like DESIRA that you will hear about, and next phase of DESIRA in Africa, but also through our engagement in international research networks like CGIAR on specific subjects such as agroecology. I only name a few of the actions that we are supporting. But what is clear is that what we do is simply a contribution to change. If the agroecology narrative is developing fast and worldwide, it's certainly because there is a growing scientific evidence of the multiple benefits that agroecology brings. There is also a growing mobilization of multiple actors, from research, from civil society, from private sector, from public authorities. And also because there are some notable changes in policies that are being crafted and implemented at continental, regional, and national levels all over the world. So I'm very happy that today we have the opportunity to have presentations that will illustrate these changes that we are noticing and that we are supporting or partnering with. And I would like to thank you for your attention and looking forward for the discussion. Thank you, Etienne.
Thank you, Christophe. Great to see that the European Union, the European Commission are supporting actively the transformation of food system. We will now move into the more detailed presentation, and I'm very happy to pass the floor on to Mr. David Amoudavi, who will share with us his views on the development of such approaches, agroecology, organic agriculture, sustainable agriculture in the African continent. Thank you, David, again for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Etienne, for the introduction. I have a presentation that I'm going to make based on the work that we are doing in Africa, and in particular to show how our work contributes to climate change actions as well as improved livelihoods. So if we could have the presentation please on, I'll really appreciate. As the presentation comes up, BioVision Africa Trust is a Pan-African organization based in Africa, here in Nairobi, in Kenya. And our work is to see how to work with small communities, small-scale farmers in the area of sustainable agriculture. The presentation has not yet come on, please. Yeah. Is that okay now? Okay. Yeah, so very briefly, BioVision Africa Trust is a Pan-African organization, as I've stated, established in 2009. And our whole purpose is to see how we can contribute to alleviation of poverty and improvement of livelihoods of small farmers in Kenya and other African countries. It's an organization founded by a renowned World Food Prize winner, laureate, Dr. Hans Rudolf Fehren, who was also once Director General of ICIPE, the institution that is hosting BioVision Africa Trust here in Nairobi. Thank you. Next slide, please. Our mission, basically, and in terms of our vision, first is to have a food-secure African continent with healthy people living in a healthy environment. We do recognize that it's important to improve the health and prosperity of people in our continent, and that's being our major goal. So our mission helps us to achieve this goal and to ensure that we are able to conserve our environment via agroecology, as well as promotion of ecological organic agriculture as an important basis for all life. Next. The world today is challenged by various bottlenecks, as we've seen, and I appreciate this concept by Stockholm Environmental Institute on planetary boundaries. Some of the issues that were raised in this Semino study really are relevant today, and that is why there is the focus of COP28 on issues of climate actions. And it is true, our biodiversity is really degraded, and as well, our nitrogen levels have really depleted. And as such, we are actually living beyond our safe boundaries. And agriculture, as mentioned earlier, is a cause to this. It's also to be part of a solution. And this is also in the light of the various challenges that we are facing. And Africa gets to get quite a big part of this through climate change shocks. And we saw how this was with COVID-19. the global price shocks in fuel, what we have seen with the Ukraine-Russia war, and all this together with the issues of undernourishment as well as malnutrition, all affecting various farm families within our continent. But we also know our current agricultural food systems are really accounting for more than 40% of total greenhouse gas emissions. And this creating a huge challenge to our food systems to ensure that everyone actually has access to food. Next slide, please. Continue. So in Africa, my organization, together with over 30 partners and supported by very appreciable organizations, in particular the Swiss Development Agency for Cooperation and Development, as well as Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, working together with the African Union, we have created a strong initiative on the continent we refer to as ecological organic agriculture, which is basically founded on the principles and practices of agroecology. And here we are very much conscious of the need for us to keep our biological diversity, ensure that the health of soils, our health of soils and air and water are maintained, and looking at how our renewable resources in our societies can be better utilized. And as such, this initiative helps to combine science, innovative practices, as well as technical and indigenous knowledge. And we have various examples, and that's why we say, although we are focusing on organic agriculture and agroecology, but in here there are various systems and practices that indeed are quite climate friendly, that are very sustainable practices that we need to support. And this initiative is quite inclusive and comprehensive of what I would actually even call green-based sustainable systems. Next slide. Within this scope of the initiative, my organization has a very big mandate to promote ecological organic agriculture as well as agroecology in Africa. We are all very privileged to have the African Union Commission support this initiative on the continent in all our 54 countries, but of course with different levels of engagement. And my organization signed a memorandum of understanding on the 20th of July 2022, making our organization become a center of excellence in the field of ecological organic agriculture and also steering work around agroecology and by extension what we are now seeing today in terms of food systems transformation. So for this, it's an important acknowledgement of the role that we play with partners on the continent. Next. We have a mosaic of partners, as you can see, right across the continent, and we work with close to almost 40 and above partners in the current initiative. And there is also one that started very soon after that in 2019, and that is the Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture, supported by GIZ through the support from BMZ, Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. And the two initiatives really have come to be important initiatives on the continent. That's the Ecological Organic Agriculture Initiative, as well as the Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture. And you'll see in the next slide how this covers actually the whole of the continent. And these are our partners. And these are the important continental initiative covering all the 5 political regions of Africa with the knowledge hubs in the area of organic agriculture. And my organization is responsible for coordinating work around Eastern Africa with 5 countries, including Madagascar, as an offshoot. So we are also privileged that this initiative really complements quite well the Ecological Organic Agriculture Initiative. Next slide. These are just results of the countries we worked in 9 of them, Benin, Mali, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, in West Africa, and in Kenya, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, on showing how farmers were able to implement some of the practices that we promoted in the targeted areas with very high levels of adoption. It was amazing to see the targeted communities in the 9 countries picking up different types of practices under ecological organic agriculture, and which are very much within the framework of agroecology. That is with over 70% adoption rate. Next slide. These are examples of the practices we are promoting in terms of sustainable agriculture and also the products that are coming out of this. And we have quite a range of them. So sometimes when people say it's only organic agriculture, we say it's actually more than organic agriculture. And we draw on different practices and also those systems that are able to better use and utilize water. And we know water is a very important component of our food systems. And how to harvest the water, get it into irrigation to support rain-fed agriculture is one of the things that we support under this ecological organic agriculture initiative. Next slide. Because of what we do, our work is also drawing attention around the world, and we are very privileged last year to be visited by the Committee on Agriculture and Food from the German Parliament. Over 12 of them visited us last year, and we are quite impressed with the work we do, and we'd like to continue doing that and to make a difference in our food systems around the continent, and hopefully also to get the recognition and the support of the efforts that we do with various partners around the continent. The next slide. This is about the 10 elements as defined by FAO and also the 13 principles of agroecology, which I want to go into details at the moment, but they are very important elements that we would like to see reflected in the work that we are promoting. As a matter of fact, being the principles that should guide how our transformation of systems should happen, it therefore means we should also have measures that can track the performance of these systems. Somewhere, and not in this presentation, I have argued also for the need for us to look at the possibility of developing actually standards so that when we have products from agroecological systems, and especially getting into the markets, we should also have the kind of standards that can actually be associated with such kind of products. It is very clear in terms of organic products, but not yet agroecological products. But these principles and elements are at the heart of the practices and interventions and innovations that are needed within our agroecological transitions in order to transform our food systems. Next. These are just photos of the work that show it requires responsible collective efforts, working with the communities, making their own organic fertilizers, working with the youth in schools, working with the practitioners who have to reach farmers, sharing knowledge and skills, peer-to-peer learning, and collectively with our partners, we are able to fight for a common cause, having sustainable food systems and requiring everyone, and perhaps I would say leaving no one behind. The youth are involved, the women are involved, men and women, and the practitioners are involved. If it is in terms of value chains, all key actors are involved. That is what I mean by having responsible collective efforts towards food systems transformation. Next. Now, what transformations do we need? I have just put a few areas around which we really need to see transformation take place within our food systems. One, we really want to see accelerated adoption of practices, technologies, and innovations that are regenerative and self-sustaining and which restore the landscapes of our ecosystem services. We'd also want to see greater focus on safe nutrition and consequent public health outcomes. These are important areas in which we need to see transformation. We'd also want to see a greater distribution of value and market transparency for all actors, that is the producers, those in the value chains, and even the consumers as well. Getting the right information about the products being produced and made available for consumption. We'd also want to see transformation in the area of innovative models and market structures that can allow funding mechanisms which support these kind of transformations that we see. And indeed, I would also wish to see more transformation in creation of resilient production systems, which can be resilient to shocks when they do happen. As we've seen, sometimes our agriculture and food systems collapse when they're subjected to some of the external shocks, like what we've seen in the recent past with climate change, COVID-19. But when you have more resilient systems, then it means you still have something for communities. And very importantly, we want to see transformation in the area of harnessing modern technology and insights that can leverage as well on traditional knowledge, which sometimes tends to be neglected. And very importantly, enabling policy interventions are important and appropriate investments as well in food systems to be propelled in the direction we want and to make our food systems to be climate friendly. Next. Now, I have a few slides. I may not go into details, but these are slides of results from the work that we have recently done, which show the contribution of agroecology to nutrition and food security, and also contributing to how we can increase the capability of our natural resources in terms of capturing carbon to be in the sink source in the soils and reducing carbon emissions. And this is through very important loops, feedback loops. And we see this being important around the area of when farmers see the benefits of agroecology. And that triggers to create more of the land to be under agroecological practices, which lead to increased crop diversity, and all this gets to be contributed towards increasing our food nutrition as well. And some benefits are also seen in the area of soil quality and ecosystem services, which are very important in terms of our food system. So this is one of those slides, and we say if we can have enabling conditions that can show that agroecology has benefits, has multiple functions, and farmers can embrace that, then this triggers the positive loops that we see within our food systems. Next. This is also the other slide that shows how agroecology contributes to this dual function of reducing carbon emissions because of the reduced focus on fossil or chemical-based inputs and increased focus on more environmentally sustainable practices, which build the soil organic matter, building soil carbon, and therefore getting more carbon into the soil, the concept of carbon sequestration. And here, if governments, development partners, organizations can recognize the potential of agroecology and promote agroecological practices, that is how we can achieve the twin function of increasing carbon into the systems and reducing carbon emissions, and therefore consequently reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Because if we continue with the upward trend of relying on external inputs, then we increase the total net emissions from agriculture and contributing to increased climate change. But if we slow down that and invest a bit more into alternatives provided by agroecology, then we are improving the capacity of our system to sequester carbon, making the carbon more productive and available to the farmers as opposed to contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. So this is one of those pathway loops that we show how agroecology can contribute to reducing greenhouse emissions as well as increasing carbon sinks and contributing to other benefits.
David, I think we have temporarily lost the connection with you. Can you hear us?
As well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I can hear you. It has hung up. Next. Okay. In the interest of time, this is again comparing agroecology and chemical agriculture. We can look at that later, but this is an important slide that has identified, again, this is work that was done involving our 5 Eastern African countries with workshops looking at insights on where are the possible drivers and possible policy areas around which we can promote agroecology. And in order for us to ensure that there is transition of farmers who are using chemical-based agriculture or doing chemical-based agriculture, or those who are doing organic by default without a good understanding of what organic agriculture is, to transit to become really green agroecology producers. And in here, we see an important demonstration of the value and contribution of agroecology. Once that is done, and a few of the drivers that can be provided in terms of policy to encourage the promotion of agroecology, then we are likely to see more farmers shifting and becoming agroecology adopters. In the absence of that, farmers can go back to transit back to become farmers, conventional or on chemical based. And for most of our farmers also who lack capacity for inputs, which we know are also a problem to agriculture, that is not the direction we'd like to see. We'd like to see a transition towards more stable end, and which is the green area. And that is where we'd like to see agroecology take place, with more farmers retaining the practice and application of agroecological practices. Next slide, please. As we do that, we are also aware that when agroecology becomes pronounced, more farmers are adopting it. We are living in a world that also faces very stiff competition from those promoting chemical-based agriculture. And this is one area that we have to be conscious about for the proponents of those that support agroecology. And we need to be aware about this. And the lesson here is then, how do we position ourselves to ensure that agroecology is actually a solution to most of the problems that we are having? And if we can't compete in demonstrating that, then we create a balance on how agroecology and other systems can exist. But this is just to show if agroecology advances, we are also very much aware there is stiff competition from those who promote it. And we need to be conscious about this and prepare strategies of how we can get this counteracted in a positive manner. Next slide. We need more forums. I've just used these two photographs of our conferences we had, one in 2019, an international conference, the first of its kind in Africa, and this year in Eastern Africa, 2023 in March. Forums that are important to demonstrate that agroecology works, and how do we promote it around our continent within our food systems. Next slide. As I finish, basically my point is it is time, and I'm happy to see that there is a revisit to agroecology as an alternative solution to addressing some of the challenges we are facing today in terms of food security and nutrition, and also in terms of climate change effects. For sure, if we can't change the course, then we will continue having forums like what you're having today and discussing how do we have better, sustainable systems that are friendly to all of us as well as to our environment. And this requires innovations. This requires more investments in resilient systems. And also this requires enabling policy frameworks that can show, if adopted, agroecology could become one of those profound approaches and systems that guarantee us food security, nutrition, reducing the pace of climate change, and enhancing biodiversity and improving general soil health. And in the end, issues of food security, which continue to be a problem in Africa and in other parts of the world, will not be the issue to continue focusing on. So these are my remarks I would like to make, and I'll be very happy to take questions at the end. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present in this side event. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you, David, for this very comprehensive and complete presentation. It provides us with a very good overview of the dynamics that are happening at continental, in Africa level, but also a sub-regional initiatives. Very, very interesting. I already have a number of questions from the participants, but these are still quite general. So as I don't see anything that is related to the comprehension of what you just shared with us, I propose we immediately move on to the next presentation, and we will take the different questions that we have received at the end of the session, because I think all the different participants, speakers, can provide answer to these. So Jérôme Quest, I am happy to give you the floor. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Etienne. So we will now present the work that we are doing in Madagascar in order to promote the transformation on food system based on agroecology. I will provide you with a global framing. Then Bertrand Muller will show the dynamic project. And then Sarah Audouin will introduce you with the Maquis project. For those who are not familiar with CIRAD, so three of us, we are working in CIRAD, which is a French research institute that studies agriculture transformation in developing countries. We have been working in Madagascar for decades, let's say. And in Madagascar, we do all our research in partnership with Malagasy research institutions, namely FOFIFA and University of Antananarivo. Next slide, please. So this case study is about Madagascar. Before to discuss about research, I have to provide you with some context. Madagascar is a very vulnerable country. Even though most countries are exposed to climate change, it's quite difficult to adapt to climate change when your population is doubling every 22 years. When most of this population, 80% of the population, is below the poverty rates defined by the World Bank. And as a matter of fact, what we see on the ground is that land is very saturated, and the farms have less and less space to produce. Madagascar is also a land where the soil is not that good. It's very deficient, and we have to cope with a lot of erosion from various origins. Because it's an island and because it lacks a lot of basic supplies like oil and rice, Madagascar is also exposed to globalization hazards. When you have the price of vanilla goes high, things go better. When the vanilla price goes down, things are much more difficult. And Madagascar is also exposed to significant governance issues that I am not going to detail today. Next slide, please. So in this context, what we researchers could observe in terms of climate change is that obviously the climate change is already in Madagascar. From the 1960s, we could measure an increase in temperature, a significant decrease in rainfall, both in volume, but also in regularity. Rain comes early, late, and this causes a lot of problems. We could not measure, but we observe a significant reduction also of underwater resources and also non-water and non-temperature issues that are biotic issues, such as pests and disease, that are becoming more and more significant. To cope with these impacts, we do believe that agroecological solutions have some impact and are some answers both to climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation. In terms of adaptation, agroecology focuses on soil fertility, and there's a broad set of practices that can restore fertility and improve ecosystem services. Agroecology, of course, also improves resilience both of crop productions and economic farm resilience. It also has things to say about integrated pest controls, and one key component of agroecological solutions is that these are incremental innovations. Therefore, they are much easier for smallholders and small farms to adopt because it's not a huge transformation of their practices. Agroecology is also quite relevant for climate change mitigation. We can ensure carbon capture in the soil, carbon capture through agroforestry and tree plantations. We could also argue that rice fields agroecological practices can reduce greenhouse gases emissions, and also due to organic fertilization, agroecological solutions may lead to a significant reduction in the consumption of chemical fertilizers, which are significant in terms of carbon emission. Next slide, please. So, in this context, what are we doing right now in Madagascar? The two projects that we are going to present are DESIRA projects. Therefore, they are funded by EU, and they try to cope. We are trying to improve the way we do science. It's not always comfortable, but it is. We believe that it is necessary in order to cope with climate change rapid transformations. So we did implement a new way of doing research in Madagascar. First, in order to provide development projects with the latest technical and organizational solutions, but also we're trying to shorten the research cycle in order to provide solutions faster, and also to try to strengthen the interactions between science and society. To do so, our framework in Madagascar is to try to rely on what we call dialogue research. First, this research is co-constructed with a broad group of stakeholders. All the research objectives and questions are co-constructed by researchers, but also development practitioners that are our partners in this project, and also beneficiaries through a various set of participatory processes. The research is also based on plausible solutions. It's not fundamental science, but it's research that is based on existing solutions that we believe are both credible, relevant, and legitimate to address the existing and pressing climate change issues. The two other points is that we conduct this research in field. We do experimentations in partnership with development practitioners in local farms production systems. And we also promote open science, which means that we make an effort to provide both our partners and society at different levels with our research as broadly as possible, free of charge, and as early as possible. I will pass the floor to Bertrand for the next slide.
Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So the two DESIRA project, Dynamic and Makis, aims at improving existing approach. Dynamic has integrated approaches and support for innovative and climate resilient farming in Madagascar, focus more on technical issues, aiming at assessing the place of agroecology in the central island area of Madagascar and at assessing and improving some agroecological practices. Makis, as Malagasy agricultural knowledge and innovation systems, focus on innovation support practice in order to help development practitioners to foster innovations. Both projects embed on community of practice approach, such as sharing of intermediate results and reflecting learning loops. They stand on an active partnership between research centers, NGOs, and farmer organizations, as you can see here. Globally, there is 3 research organizations: CIRAD, FOFIFA with local agronomical institute, and IRD with another French research institution. And there is 8 development partners, including 3 farmers organizations. Next, please. So, more specifically to Dynamic goal is to contribute to reduce smallholder farm vulnerability to climate change and other environmental change. The project is organized in 4 components. The first component is devoted to deepening our knowledge of the situation of farmers and the integration and impact of agroecological practices. The second one will develop and improve agroecological practices considering multi-criteria co-evaluation. We will mention some later, more in detail. The third component consists in dissemination of some agroecological practices, and it is operated by NGOs and farmer organizations. And the fourth component aims at strengthening stakeholders' capacity, operational and technical ones, but also their understanding of the complexity of the reality, with the objective to reinforce their lobbying capability for agroecological promotion. Through all the projects, the smallholder farms are considered with their multi-activity dimension and within their nearby environment. So Dynamic stands on different participatory research approach, such as a common choice of research topics that was decided at the beginning of the project, even during the setup, in-field participatory evaluation, different kinds, like field school, monitoring of reference farms, varietal participatory evaluation, and so on. And during the course of the project, we introduced thematic animation groups, including all partners, for some topics such as crop livestock integration, the role of trees, water use and preservation, and climate information. Next, please. So more specifically, the agroecological research topics include that are in Dynamic are the level of adoption of what are the level of adoption of agricultural practices, both endogenous and exogenous. What is the real impact on the incomes and on the nutrition of farmers of the agroecological practices? If we can also find some good soil evolution under different practices in the landscape. We are working also on participatory varietal evaluation and training of seed producing farmers. We are working on trees and agroforestry promotion. We are working on crop livestock integration, including fish rice systems. And we have a quite important component on new pests and disease control, new pests that explode during the last year due probably both to climate change and anthropization of the landscapes. We are making some serious game to address environmental resource management, and we are working also on improvement of meteo information services. We hope that we will demonstrate at the end of the project the benefits of those very important interaction between researchers, development practitioners, and farmers. Next, please.
Okay, it's my turn. Hello, everybody. So I'm very pleased to present you the MACIS project. My name is Sarah Audouin. I'm a researcher at CIRAD, and I co-lead the MACIS project with my colleague Jérôme Kest. So the MACIS project aimed at strengthening the Malagasy capacity of organization, of decision makers, of farmers organization to support agricultural innovation in Madagascar. We develop a research approach made of 4 components, which are linked in an interactive way with a 5th component, which is the reflexivity and learning loops. So the first component is about participatory diagnosis. So we will carry out 10 diagnoses based on 10 case studies, and we will develop analysis about what are the innovation dynamics that we can observe and what are the innovation support models that are implemented by development practitioners, but also by research organization. Then based on the results, we will draw on and we will co-design several experiments. We will design 4 participatory experiments on technical innovation, and we will co-design 4 participatory experiments more about the management of the supporting models. Our aim is to improve both technical practices and improve the way organizations manage supporting models to support farmers. Then we will draw lessons from these several results and build recommendations that will end up with several projects like 2 handbooks and 1 policy brief. Next, please. Okay, and the fourth component is also to facilitate a network and a learning community that we want to handle at a different level, at the core project team, but also beyond the project. And we want to involve a community of practitioners, of development and research practitioners. And also we want to involve decision makers at national level and also regional public agents. Next one, please. Then about the reflexivity and learning loops, this will happen thanks to several activities. First of all, we want to reflect about our own research approach, and we will do that through annual review of our theory of change. We will use monitoring, evaluation, and learning tools that will strengthen the capacity of ourselves and of our development partners. And we will benefit also from methodological support from the Desira Lift initiative as well to carry out this reflexivity. And last one is also that we will build and facilitate cross-cutting dialogue with development practitioners about several subjects that we all are dealing with, like how to support farmers, what is the right and appropriate scale to intervene, what kind of method and tools, and so on. Next one, please. So here you have several examples of the case studies and of the supporting models tools that are associated to. So about the case studies, we will analyze innovation practices related to rice fish farming, for example, or a biofertilizer. I won't say all, you can read it here. And about the supporting models and tools, also we want to cover a wide diversity of the supporting models that exist and are implemented in Madagascar, like farmer field schools, community-based development, public-private partnerships, and so on. Next one. So I will conclude this presentation with our 3 take-home messages to enhance agroecology in 1,000 countries. Our first key message is that if we want smallholders to increase their capacity and their resilience, we need to provide and build with them a diversified set of solution, and that has to be context driven. In other words, we want to say that agroecology there is no one silver bullet, but agroecological solution. So we need to rely on a portfolio of different agroecological practices and about different supporting models. And our second key message is that for sure we need to strengthen the link between farmers, farmer organization, development organization, research, and even with decision makers. So this call for a renewal of interaction between science and society. And we believe a research action approach that accounts for reflexivity and learning loops is part of the solution. And we really believe that this is the way to go when we talk about research and development projects. And our third key message is that we often read that we need to go to scale. We need to develop new scaling mechanisms. We can read that we talk about upscaling, outscaling, even deep scaling mechanisms. And through all these different mechanisms, this is mainly about learning and reflexivity. So our message here is that we really need to develop and anticipate learning mechanisms at different scales. and develop learning loops with farmer organization, development organization, research, and decision makers. So we really think this is the way to go. Then I think this is the end of our presentation, and we would like to thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah, Bertrand, and Jérôme for this presentation, this analysis of the context in Madagascar, the different activities that you are undertaking to promote these approaches, but also these hints on the key challenges we have to face to actually continue working on this and ensure that agroecology is actually able to respond to these challenges. Let's now move to the different questions we have received from the Slido or the chat. And just to start with, these are two comments sent directly to David. The first one is from Rosina Mbenya from Pelum, Kenya, which says it's great that you emphasize the role of small-scale farmers and that they must be central in the decision for the transformation of food system. And another one from Hamidou Al-Mamidi, who is very proud about the results of the program to support organic agriculture in Africa. And still with David, now we have a number of specific questions addressed to you. The first one is, how is the reception of agroecology by the different cultures, since you are working in different countries and contexts in Africa? And then the second one, it's related to the need to involve everyone in the transition. And if you could name or present some examples of how you are ensuring this inclusivity. Aware of the time and the little time that is left, I would ask all the speakers to provide direct answers to the point so that we can cover as many questions as possible. Thank you. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Etienne. I appreciate the compliments by Rosina and Hamidou. On the question of how the different countries are perceiving and receiving agroecology, I would say it is quite encouraging to see the positive response that is coming from the different countries around the continent. And this is also even more in response to the indicators we have developed around agroecology and ecological organic agriculture, which have now been integrated into the Comprehensive African Development Program, which is a policy framework, and for which member states in Africa report every 3 years. And we have 3 important indicators that have been included in there, one of them being the size of area, acreage, and agroecological practices. And also looking at the types of practices in agroecology that the farmers are using, and also looking at the size of organic fertilizers. And these are important indicators that have now been reported for the first time with 26 countries collecting data on this. And also there is positive response from the agroecology strategies, national strategies that are being developed. In East Africa, Tanzania has just launched its strategy for agroecology, and more specifically on ecological organic agriculture. Kenya, the strategy is quite advanced. Uganda, they are working on theirs after the policy on organic agriculture. And in our West African countries, all our participating countries are working on national strategies for agroecology. And they're working with the different stakeholders, including the governments. And in terms of including everyone, yes, actually, agroecology, in terms of intervention, in terms of programs, and what kind of policies we require, we can't make much progress without involving everyone. And we've tried to ensure that the government as a public sector is on board, the private sector for profit and non-profits on board. We also work with farmers through their farmers organizations and associations that are on board. And then the civil society, the NGOs, the community-based organizations, that are all part of this process. And we don't leave out also our friends, our development partners in this process. So it is very key that we have a structured engagement with all these key actors, including the fourth state, the media, who are also really bringing out key issues that all key stakeholders need to respond to. So thank you, and I can only say it is quite encouraging to see the extent to which agroecology, and in terms of programs, in terms of policies and frameworks, is actually picking up in several African countries. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for your answer. And now I will turn to three colleagues from CIRAD. We have a question here about the role of stakeholders, in particular farmers and the private sector, which we haven't mentioned yet a lot. What role could they play in the widespread adoption of agroecological practices for the transformation of food system? There would be one question. And then a second one, which is related to food security. How do you see that the adoption of agroecology is actually enhancing the resilience of food system against climate-induced disruption in the food production and distribution? I don't know if one of you three.
I think I will take the first question, and I will pass the floor to Bertrand for the second one, if he doesn't mind. In Madagascar, the smallholders are essential to the transformation of food system, because well, basically most of Malagasy agriculture is done by family farming, so they really are at the center of our concerns, and most of our actions are trying to understand first how to support how do they change, and how do they innovate and adopt new practices, whether they are agroecological ones or not. And the second step is how to support these innovation processes. This innovation support basically can be provided either by civil society, through NGOs, by public servants, through governmental policies, or by private sectors, through mostly supply chains and technical supports. And most probably what we envision is a partnership between the three components of innovation support systems: public, private, and civil society. So to make things simple, our focus is on smallholders, and the key actors to support the smallholders are a combo of both public, private, and civil society.
Thank you, Jérôme. Maybe Bertrand for the next point.
Okay, thank you. But maybe, Sarah, you want to add something to what Jérôme comments?
Yes, Bertrand, thank you. Just to complement what Jérôme said, we know that to support agricultural innovation, we need different kind of support. That's what we call innovation support services. In other words, this is the different support, meaning training, technical training, advisory services, or access to market, access to some kind of resources like funds or equipment. This is other kind of support like institutional support, and so on. And we know that some kind of stakeholders will be more efficient or more relevant in providing some kind of these support services. For example, we cannot imagine to support access to the market without involving at some stage the private sector. And same as for training, technical training, we know that several organizations develop curricula, training, and so on. So we really need to rely on what we call an ecosystem of support services. And the challenge is to make it efficient and ensure that there is real collaboration among these different stakeholders.
Okay, so to answer to the question, the question was dealing with resilience, how agroecology allow resilience to climate change.
To climate change and
okay.
to the disruption in the production and the distribution of food.
Okay, I don't know if I will completely answer the question, but first we have in the area where we are working in the basically mainly in the highlands, central island of Madagascar. It's important to note that the farmers are very poor globally and they are very limited by available cultivable cropping area. On average, the family farms are around half an hectare. So that's a very important point. And due to many factors, the traditional way of producing are already, let's say, agroecological, based on cereal, on legumes rotation and things like this. So what the development partner are doing and what we are doing, it's how to study how we can improve those agroecological practices, how we can intensify them. Okay, so what we can say that in our study we realize that the more the people have different activities, agricultural or crop livestock integrated activities on the farms, more their incomes are better and they appear to be more resilient globally, not specifically only to climate change, but globally to all the constraints they cope with. Okay, and basically, and also the yields are less the variation of the yields from one year to the other is also less important when you have agricultural practices and an integration of different practices inside your farms. That's what can I answer to you.
Thank you, Bertrand. I think you have covered. I see that we are now moving to the end of the time that was allocated to us. I had two additional questions. One was focusing on the type of practices that support the mitigation of the emissions, but I would invite the participants to maybe go to the slide of David with this kind of interconnection. Very interesting slide which shows how the different practices can actually lead to, on the one hand, store more carbon, and on the other hand, reduce the level of emissions. And then the second question that we have not addressed yet is actually focusing on what can we do to actually scale up. So that was the last recommendation of Sarah's presentations, and I think we have covered these challenges in the presentation and some parts of the different answers. I think the presentation would be available online for the participants. So thank you for this. And thank you for the participants for your contribution to the questions in the chat. And a very big thank you to our 5 distinguished speakers. We are in very busy time in the end of the year, so thank you for taking the time to prepare a presentation and share your experience with us. With this, I think we can conclude here. We have to conclude. We could continue the discussion for another hour, I think. But thank you very much to everyone, and wishing you all the best for in your activities for the end of this year. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye.